Good evening. Let me welcome you to this evening's broadcast of Mango Tree Dialogues, a forum in which we discuss the issues of the day. But let me wish first that you have had a good day and you're now rested and taking it a little easy. Well, as you know, on this forum, we try to talk about matters that are happening in the international sphere, and especially in America. And then there on Thursday, we do the section on Jamaica and the Caribbean diaspora. So I'd just like to remind you that we'll be here again on Thursday at 8 p.m. To do this all over again. All right, first things first, what are the light moments? What has been resting on my mind? And again, I go back to the heat. Every year, we're told that at least for the past, I would say 5 years, as I can recall, and it could be much earlier than that the temperature is getting hotter and hotter. And every year, it is hotter. We are being told already that this July is hotter or was hotter, almost at the end of the month, than last year. And I've said a number of things with regard to the heat and the whole matter of climate change. But what I would like to say to you this evening, friends, is that with the heat, we have to do everything to protect ourselves, our bodies, and especially that of our children. We're no longer living in normal times, in the sense that, we can just be kind of naive about the heat that is on us. Because as you know, exposure to heat, the intense heat, can have very devastating health effects on people, especially the elderly. And so one of the things that I would like to urge, and as I go out on the street, I go into the supermarkets, or I walk around and look around, I see people in the, what you would say, the broiling sun, in the hot sun, walking around with no cover at all on their heads. I find it interesting because, one would think that the first thing, if you're out there and the rain is falling, you want to cover your head with the umbrella, right? Or probably you pull a raincoat over. What about the sun and the intense heat that is out there? What I would like to urge on you, my friends, is that please, if you're out there, wear a head covering. I don't know what the covering is going to be, but anything at all that can keep the sun, the penetrating sun, from off your heads. The intensity of it is too much. Well, when I'm out there, I always wear a cap. You can see. All right, and this is one of them. I wear this one quite a bit. And this is another one that I wear, Microsoft cap. And they give me adequate cover. You see, the sun is not beating down in my head. It's not beating down in my forehead. It's not beating in my face. It's the cap is taking the brunt of it. And to me, that is just common sense. But when you don't have on anything at all and you're out there, your entire head is exposed to the intensity of the heat. And that is why I would like to urge folks, as much as you can do it, put on a hat, put on a cap, put on some kind of covering to keep yourself healthy. It can make a lot of difference. We know of the intense heat can cause cancers, even skin cancers. And that is something that many people suffer from. So you have to be very, very careful. Do everything in your power to keep yourself healthy in these hot days. And there's no promise that we're going to go back to a time when it's not going to be hot. So it's best we start to get the practice now. All right, so that's, as an introduction to lighter things that I thought I would share with you this evening. Now, what are the things that are on my mind this evening? In terms of international happenings, the Venezuelan elections have just taken place, and that's a matter of concern. I'll talk a little about that. But there has also been an attack on Israel from Lebanon. It is purported that the Hezbollah, based in Lebanon, carried out this attack. And there's more than a simmering unease in that part of the world. I want to say something about that as well. But in terms of things American, there has been something that has rested on my mind quite recently, and it is coming largely from the Trump campaign, where they seem now to think that they can use insults of people, calling people names and institutions and saying all kinds of outrageous things, and to see that as a winning political strategy. I want to spend some time talking about that in what I'm characterizing as using insults as campaign political strategy. And then lastly, I want to take a brief look, because this is a subject that calls for greater discussion. And I may want to do with my Mango Tree Squad a discussion on this, the reform of the United States Supreme Court and what was announced recently by President Biden as he goes into the last lap, so to speak, of his time in office. I want to spend a little while just make a few comments on that. All right, so to the situation in Venezuela. Last Sunday they had their elections, and the results have been declared, and the results have Nicolas Maduro, the sitting president, as winning over 50% of the votes. I think it was about 51% or thereabout. Of course, there is a lot of protest that is taking place in the country right now. People have come out on the streets, and fire has been burning in some places. But people are understandably concerned because they believe again that the election has been rigged, and that, of course, Maduro did not win. There is strong antecedent for this in previous elections. So in a sense, it is not surprising to know, as a matter of fact, some people could have easily predicted, or many people could have easily predicted that this would be the outcome, because this is what it has always been. He has done everything, it seems, in his power to put oppression on the opposition. One of the leading candidates in the race, a lady by the name of Miss Machado, who would have won, given if the elections were fair. But she was banned from running by some kind of specious accusations that barred her from running for the presidency or running for office. And so she was replaced by an opposition gentleman who she backed and who seemed to have taken on a kind of Well, let me just put it this way. As he moved around in the country, he wasn't that strong at the beginning because he was not the preferred candidate, but because he was backed by Machado, he was able to, and she went all over the country riding bikes and all that, going to areas that politicians had never been before. I talked to one of my Venezuelan friends, and she told me that they were surprised to see that Machado, a politician, would turn up in that part of Venezuela where apparently no politician had been before. So that was the mettle of the person that they banned. And so her capital went over to the new opposition leader, Eduardo, I think. And he, carried the baton. But of course, if you're talking about an election being stolen, it appears to be that is what happened. And I say appear, although it seems pretty obvious, but until one knows the facts, and we here at Mango Tree Dialogues are for the facts as they unfurl. But most people and many nations, especially in the United States, they have not accepted the results as the will of the people. And they're calling for some kind of international investigation into it. And I can see that Maduro is going to come under intense pressure to allow a more decent process, a more open process. At least what the opposition is calling for the ballots to be counted. But you can probably rest assured that many of those ballots have already been destroyed. Who knows? But it's a very sad state of affairs for what Venezuela has become. Once one of the richest, if not the richest country in Latin America. Remember back in the days, people like Carlos Andres Perez, president of Venezuela, had such a standing in the world, helping other countries. I know Jamaica, for example, got some very good help from them through the Caracas Accords and getting oil at certain acceptable levels, pricing. But there was stability, there was freedom. And this is what the people are clamoring for and hoping for. They ceded a lot of their freedoms, I believe, to Hugo Chavez, who preceded Maduro. And now Maduro, once he got in, he seemed to have taken on the Trumpian philosophy that he should, or at least the philosophy of autocrats, that he should stay in office forever. That's what it is appearing to be. And he has conducted himself in a way that leaves no one with any question in their mind that is where he's at. So we watch the situation in Venezuela, we watch it as it unfurls. America has to be watching it very carefully, because if there is any real serious dislocations in the society, you can expect a flood of refugees again trying to get to America, as many Venezuelans have had to run, flee and come to America. And that's one of the big concerns that America has. I understand, almost 8 million people or so since the disturbances and the problems started under Maduro, that people have fled the country, some of the best brains. So what's happening to the country? One of the richest countries in terms of oil. And they can't even pull the oil out of the ground because they don't have the resources to do it. And the multinational companies that would want to carry on business, they are sanctioned. So let's watch this one and see how things unfurl. But what must eventually prevail is that the will of the Venezuelan people for freedom, for integrity, for the free exercise of their democratic rights within the rule of law must be at the very top of any outcome. So let's watch that one. All right. Another matter of international concern is that over the weekend, a number of rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel in the Golan Heights. And you know, in one of the wars, Israel had captured the Golan Heights from the Syrians. And of course, settlers had moved there, and communities have been built there. And 12 people were killed, including children who were playing, I understand, soccer. And this has really stirred some kind of memory, harkening back to what happened on October 7, when Hamas carried out that invasion of Israel, and over 1,200 people were slaughtered, and so many were taken as hostages to Gaza. There is now, I was going to say disquiet, but it is more than disquiet, because it is as if the region is now on the edge of war. Israel has responded, and what Lebanon fears, perhaps even as I speak now, is an all-out invasion, and certainly an escalation of Israel's response to that particular atrocity. And already there is a lot of problems that have been created by Israel's response to Gaza. So that war is still going on. They're still trying to destroy Hamas, however impossible that is. And over 40,000 people have been killed. Perhaps a good 30,000 of those being children and women and elderly. What some have characterized as a genocide. I have called it genocidal, to tell you frankly, in my writings, I think even in one of these broadcasts, in Manga Tree Dialogues, I've referred to the genocidal footprint of Israel in Gaza. That's a serious matter. So now to have the whole matter compounded by Lebanon being drawn in. Remember now, it is not Lebanon per se as a country that would be attacking or fighting Israel. The Hezbollah, which has one of the biggest for a group, which is not a country. Lebanon is a country. But even within Lebanon, this group has been able to grow into a military force that rivals the force of many smaller countries. They have sophisticated weaponry, missiles that have been supplied largely by Iran. Think about that. And so if there's an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah, well, Hamas has been largely defeated in Gaza. But if there should be an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel, you can look for other countries to be pulled into it, especially knowing that Iran is a very big backer, lack of a better word, a supporter of Hezbollah and Hamas. As a matter of fact, they're the ones, Iran is the one that feeds these groups, gives them the ability to acquire weapons and even give them weapons, And then you have in Yemen, you have the Houthis. They also are firing rockets and missiles. And they too are being supported by Iran. Hamas is supported by Iran. It seems to me that Iran is the fulcrum of this kind of axis that needs to be tamed. They just have a new presidential election and a gentleman who seems to be more disposed to moderate insofar as we can speak about moderation in that country, and at least more conservative and moderate, has taken the reins of power, and we see how he moves things. But Iran seems to be at the epicenter of a lot of the distress that is happening down there. And I was reading somewhere, I think it was on Al Jazeera, where Turkey now, Erdogan, is getting now very unhappy with Israel because of what Israel is doing to the people in Gaza. So who knows? So the bottom line is, my brothers and sisters, is that there is a growing tension in the region right now that could at any time spill over into all-out war that will throw the entire region into a conflagration that the world will regret. The world will regret. I don't know where America stands at the present time. I haven't heard much from the administration in terms of what happened recently. I think they're probably wanting to tamp it down to make sure that it does not get out of hand. And they better work fast to ensure that that doesn't happen. Because the world would be in a very bad way when you have all the autocrats coming together, Russia and China and all the other places that don't respect democratic ways of doing things, come together and start to flex their muscle to get in on piece of the action. By the way, that is why Maduro is behaving the way he's behaving, because he thinks he has the backing of these autocrats. He has been cozying up to Russia and China, Putin and Xi Jinping. And they have been giving him support. So he thinks that he can wiggle his way through. But we'll see. All right, so things in America now. And I mentioned the using insults as a political campaign strategy. To tell you frankly, and until I see it otherwise, the only political party that I see its main contender for office has been on the public platform calling people names, saying all kinds of outrageous things about people and not talking to policy issues, is Donald Trump representing the Republican Party. I don't hear it from the Democrats. And I think I listen these, I pay attention to these things enough to know, to have known whether they are calling people names, some of the most outrageous things that are being said, especially since Kamala Harris took over became the presumptive nominee for the Democrats. I will not repeat on Mango Tree Dialogues some of the things, the names that Trump has called her. I will not dignify them by even uttering them out of my mouth. But they are there. You can go to Google and Google it, and you'll get all kinds of news from all kinds of different sources on platforms, the outrageous things that he has said about her. And you know it's going to get worse. And you know why it will get worse? Because Trump has no other way of speaking. It is very sad that a leading political party that has held the political power in this country over its almost 250 years has had outstanding presidents that have done good work for the country, has committed itself to the whole notion of conservatism based on freedom, small government, taking the government off the backs of the people. Law and order. You remember that? This was a law and order party. So a party that prided itself in these very important values, to have allowed itself in such a short time to have been taken over by a movement that is now called the MAGA movement, making America great again, as if America wasn't great. That has taken it over now and has converted it in my mind to what I describe as a shriveled crust of MAGAism. And sometimes when I'm talking to some of my friends, you know, I say to them that there's no Republican Party. There's no Republican Party going into November. What you have is a shriveled crust of MAGAism. Because that's not the Republican Party as we know it. The Republican Party of Lincoln, of Reagan, of Theodore Roosevelt, of Bob Dole, of Jack Kemp, and all these conservative Republicans, Mitt Romney. It is a different party altogether. What has happened is that they have allowed this party to be taken over by one person who has converted it into an image of himself, and who now stands at the top of it as a king who is not to be questioned. He says anything and he gets away with it. As a matter of fact, when he says the most outrageous things out there on the stump, people cheer him on. You know, it's hard to follow that people who, even if you went just to high school, worse if you went to college, where you should have gotten a bit more enlightened, that you could be out there listening to all that garbage and rubbish that spews from Trump's mouth. And you come back time after time for more. It boggles the mind to what extent any human being can absorb the tissues of lies and the name calling and the degrading of other people. And I know, you know why I think it is so pathetic too? There are many ways in which somebody can insult you. And one of the principal ways is when they tell you lies. Because when somebody lies to you, what they're trying to tell you is that they can get you to accept something that is not true. And if you buy into it, then they have no respect for your intelligence. They don't think that you are capable of anything else. That's why you accept it. And if they know that you are the kind of person who will accept lies readily, they will keep telling you. So first, if they want to insult you, they'll tell you lies. The second way in which they can do it, and especially politicians, is that they will not discuss policies. Because going back to the first point, they don't believe that you can understand policies. They take you for granted, or or not even for granted, because they have already settled on the fact, on the belief that you don't understand much. You won't question much. You won't push back as you keep coming back for more and more of it. And that is why Trump doesn't bother about talking policies. Not that he understands the contours of very intricate policies anyway. And that is why he's on the stump and he's there as an entertainer. And he tells people what they want to hear and they like it. Because he's not interested in serious policy discussions. I'm not even sure he's capable of serious policy discussions. I don't know if you've ever watched sometimes when he's asked a question about a particular issue, and the issue merits a deeper analysis, a deep enough analysis. And he will start off by saying something about, then he veers off. He veers off the road to something else. Or he says something very banal or superficial that does no merit at all to the issue being discussed or the question that was asked of him. And that's how he behaves on the storm. He will go up there, and that is why he finds all the time in the world to concoct all kinds of stories. And then when he wants to entertain the crowd, he calls people's names. As I said, I'm not going to repeat. I could call a number of things that he said. Or he derides people's personalities. Because he has no respect for the crowd. He has no respect for the audience. And by extension, he has no respect for the people of this country that he's asking to listen to all that garbage and tissues of lie to put him in office. He doesn't have no respect for you. If he had respect for you, he would speak to the issues. But why speak to the issues if he thinks that you are going to vote for him anyway, like he told the Christians at this point presentation that he gave over the weekend, I think Turning Point. He told them that, vote for me, and when you vote for me, you won't have to do it again, because in 4 years we'll fix it. You'll never have to vote for me again. And if I'm not mistaken, there was some cheer. That is why many see him as that Messiah. Can do no wrong. There's an article, I think, in the Atlantic by McAlpin, and he's one of these journalists who has been following the Trump campaign. And he talks about the different prayers that are being said at the Trump rallies. They start off with this veneer of godliness at their rallies and have these prayers. And people now have gone up there and they're praying. And he's saying in that article that somehow the prayers have kind of shifted. That there was a time when they would pray, in a way that, Trump, would be protected and Trump would be given certain wisdom from God. But now the way that they're praying is as if God must now come over on Trump's side and make things happen. Let me tell you something, friends. This messianic obsession with Trump is dangerous. And what really floors me, and many of those things can floor me, but I can tell you that this one has floored me, is the extent to which members of the evangelical community, and let me define that. Because the evangelical community in this country is not monolithic in its thinking, meaning that they think one way. There are various elements in the evangelical movement. You have black evangelicals, and nobody would think that. The way we talk about evangelicals is that they're all white people and from a particular part of the country. But even within the white evangelicalism, there are still many people who don't subscribe to the nonsense that others who see Trump as Messiah subscribe to. They don't. So there's no one way of looking at it. Many of them are offended too because they understand what Christianity is about. And they too see the danger that Trump represents as a man seeing himself as Messiah and telling them to vote for him because he can do almost magical things as if he has godly powers. But what has floored me is the extent to which so many of them have bought into this notion and are willing to suspend their beliefs and to allow themselves to be absorbed into this kind of cultic, toxic brew of religiosity. That they don't even recognize is a serious danger to the country. It is very sad. And they'll be willing because Trump will vote for, Trump will support, if he does get in at all, that he will support their pet policies, their pet issues like abortion and beating down the LGBTQ community. I've never seen a group of people who say they love God. They believe in love and they believe in the, the practices and teachings of Jesus Christ, who hate other ethnic communities like that. Homophobic, transgender phobia. People don't look like them. And are willing through Project 2025 to put them in their place. How willing they are to suspend their judgment or whatever little moral principle they have in service to this wider cause of autocracy. But at the very least, people must understand that they should never make insults of other people, which translates into insult of themselves as well, if they buy into it. They should never reward any politician that comes to them, whether in person or on a campaign podium, and use insults like those as a strategy to win political power. They should never condone it. And they should make sure they shouldn't even be listening to that thing. But if they think they're being entertained, I guess, they want to be there. But they must eschew and set aside that kind of thinking. Am I asking too much? I can hear some of my friends. Yes, you're being very naive, too optimistic. Yes, I hear it. I hear you. But I have to believe that there is something better in our natures. I'm not even gonna talk about the angel in us or whatever, those kind of pedantic comments sometimes. But I believe in the human project still. And I hope that as you listen carefully and don't allow yourself to be hoodwinked by the kind of nastiness that I see on many of these campaign stops. All right, enough of that. The last point now that I'd want to talk to you about is, and very quickly, is reigning in the Supreme Court. President Biden's plan to reign in the Supreme Court. He has proposed 3 things in a speech he gave in Texas when he attended the anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act in 1968 by President Lyndon Johnson. And very quickly, the 3 things that he's proposing is that there should be term limits of 18 years. One of the things that struck me, over the years really, is how is it that a country as big as this, as large as this, gives such vast power to 9 of its citizens to sit forever, making far-reaching decisions that can alter the lives of people and the directions of this country, as Roe v. Wade, the overthrow of Roe v. Wade has done. How is it possible that they are there forever outside of impeachment, and there's nothing harder than trying to impeach a Supreme Court justice? So that's a non-starter. But they're there for life, even when, as it has been apparent with, one or 2 of them, when cognitive failures set in and they're not able to make right judgments about matters that come before them, they still totter along without even giving up, perhaps political considerations and other considerations. So the time has really come for them to be subjected to term limits. Why should a 45-year-old person go in there and be there for 25 years? Are you telling me that there are not other people outside there in the country who could be doing a better job? I think 18 years is too much. It should be 9 years. You can't keep rotating people. Well, not just rotating really, but putting in new people. You move out, other people come in with new ideas, and you keep the fertility of the country and the fecundity of mind going. It's one of the things that has really, I would even say, it has bothered me, yes, but flabbergasted me to think that you could give people this inordinate power and they can wield it. Because let me tell you, as things are beginning to become obvious in the recent rulings by this Supreme Court and the 6 Republican appointees, yes, we have to say it that way because that is what it is, who are on the Supreme Court, and the way that they have ruled, the last ruling about immunity that has given the president, the power to commit crimes if it is deemed to be his official duty. Where you get that nonsense? Even in the worst banana republic, you don't hear that. They couldn't come there with that. But here in America, you have it. If it is a judge that has official duty, you can order the assassination of somebody and you go free. Where you get that from? But we are dealing now with a rogue court of 2 of the justices at least who have accepted gifts from rich people. And that's one of the other things that Biden is suggesting, that they have ethical reform. There's an ethical code of conduct. Since they can't make it for themselves, then the Congress has to do it. Because I'm the Chief Justice. Yeah, he's just one of the justices too, but, where is he in seeing to something like this being done? And then the third one is to do away with the whole idea of immunity for presidents in office, or at least to define more precisely what immunity is. And to have some kind of, I don't know how they're going to do it, whether they're going to do it by a constitutional change, because it would have to be done by constitutional change. And that, again, is another big thing, because it has to have two-thirds majority of the Congress, of both houses of Congress, and two-thirds of the states, which is about 38 states, for any amendment to the Constitution to pass. So I don't know how, that is well nigh climbing Mount Everest. Of course, people like McConnell have already said that it's dead on arrival. Don't even come to the Senate with it, because we're not for it. They have this 60-vote filibuster. I don't even mention the House of Representatives, because I don't even think they would even want to look at the bill. But this is a start. At least the president is calling attention to it as he moves towards the end of his term. And I applaud him for it. I applaud him for it. We can always talk and make all kinds of noise about what ought to be done and what is not being done and what these people are doing and so on. But until you begin to talk serious policy about what you're going to do, and at least attempt to put these policies in place, whether others want to shoot it down or not, shoot them down or not, at least start somewhere. And so we'll see, because at least it will exercise the mind. People will talk about it, debate it, and so on, and then it will, that is how a democratic society works anyway. You throw ideas out there and so on. But if you don't put the ideas out there, what are people going to discuss? So I applaud the president. It's the right thing to do, especially in the present iteration of the Supreme Court. It is in serious need for reform. And I hope that they'll be able to get that done. Gonna take time, but I can tell you, politics has a way to shift in the direction of the right thing. That is what has made this country great. There are many wrong things that have been done in the long history of this country. But there are so many other right things. And this is one of the right things that needs to be done. All right, so I'm not going to say any much more about this, but these are subjects that at some point I will return to as we move towards the elections. And we'll have more fulsome discussions of these under the mango tree with my squad and others as we distill these matters. All right, so that is going to do it for me for this evening. Just want to remind you that Thursday we are here again. And next Thursday, I want to take a look at the Jamaica Public Service Company. Because it has come under a great deal of criticism, and in many respects, rightly so, in the way it has handled the recovery process after the Hurricane Beryl. And even as I speak now, there is another system brewing out there. Doesn't seem to be a direct threat to Jamaica at this point. And it doesn't seem that it may develop into certainly what Beryl was. But you never can tell, because, boy, the ocean is hot. And talking about heat, friends, remember the last time I mentioned with the Olympics and heat? I understand today that there is some talk from the Jamaican contingent that the time is so hot that at least one of the athletes, I understand, probably don't even want to compete. But it is hot. and it's gonna get hotter. And I don't envy them out there in the sun, especially the runners, running in that heat. I don't know, unless they're gonna do it at nights in the stadium. I don't really know the arrangement for that, but the heat is on. All right, so we will deal with that, the Jamaica Public Service matter, and then we'll see where we go with other things. Just want to urge you again in closing that try to keep yourself covered from the sun. The heat is unrelenting. You don't want to be caught walking up and down in the sun without that covering. I try to do that. What I try to do for myself, which I think is pleasing and is healthy, I pass it on. I mess up your hair a bit, but better to have your hair messed up than to have skin cancer. It's that bad. All right, so thank you for joining me this evening. I look forward to us meeting again next time. What I say to you now as I go is that whatever you do it in the power of your strength and walk good. Good night.